He would be the man with his donkey. He would be remembered as a man with a donkey and a national hero from a country halfway across the world. He and his donkey would save many lives while putting his own life at risk in a remote part of the world in World War One. He had become a legend and to an extent a folk hero, but largely unknown, especially in Great Britain, his home country. The story of John Kirkpatrick. The story of John Kirkpatrick. We know about his life, but only Kirk had a lot of tall tales surrounding him. One fact remains: he was a true hero, and his brave man's story, and this brave man's story will never be forgotten. John J- John Kirkpatrick, nicknamed Jack, was born in South Shields in 1892. He lived with his mother and father and two sisters and attended a but- Buttermore school. While on holidays and summer vacation, he would be a donkey lad for Mr. George, giving donkey rides for a penny a ride along the seafront. He would usually leave the donkeys on the sand. Jack worked very long hours with the donkeys and even rode them home. In 1909, tragedy struck his family as his father died, and 2 days after, he left home to start work with the Merchant Navy, and the wages he sent home would be more than enough to pay for the funeral and be essential for his family. Joining the Navy took Jack around the world. He went from Africa to the Mediterranean and really enjoyed seeing and visiting new places. But after he got home for Christmas, he was off yet again, as he set sail with the ship called Yedo. From South Shields to Chile, it was absolutely dreadful. The weather was terrible and the food was disgusting. As well, he thought to the ship life wasn't for me, and he jumped ship and went to Australia. He made his way from Newport to Queensland, but after a few months, worked his way back down from Kent to Sydney, which was more than the distance from South Shields to London 5 times over in just a few months. This would be a foresight into the future of his will, stamina, and determination that would make him a hero. He was under the impression Australia was the land of milk and honey, the land of opportunities, and he could find a job and work anywhere and get good wages and send it back to home to his mother. But this would prove not to be the case. Wages on mainland Australia were low. He cut cane, he worked at a cattle ranch, and he found himself in the mines. And working in the mines in 1910 was not easy. It was still long and hard work, and no decent pay, barely enough. He went back to the shipyard and became a and became a what did he become? He became a portster, where he would shout from port to port along the coastline of Australia, and then he decided to join the army. That would put him on the scene of his heroics. He travelled back to the UK. He thought he would travel back to UK. Then he would travel back to the UK to visit his mother and father. To visit his mother. He went back to the shipyards and became a porter, which he would call out from port to port along the coastline. I don't know what a porter really is, but that's what he did until he decided to join the army, which would put him on the scene of his heroics as he travelled back to the UK, as he wanted to travel back to the UK to meet his family and then do his bit for the war. But World War One broke out. The best way to and became he he went back to the shipyards and became a porter, where he would call from port to port along the coastline of Australia. But then he decided he wanted to go back home because he was homesick. So he started to work his way on a ticket back to the UK. But then World War One broke out, and he decided to join the army, which would be his best way to do, which would be his best way to get back home. And he signed up on the Imperial Australian Force under John Simpson to make sure he would not be detected by the Merchant Navy for jumping ship, for abandoning, for um, mutiny, jumping off his post. Jack had planned to go home, see his family, like I said, and go off to war. But the war came sooner than expected for him. En route to England, Turkey had entered the war, and Gallipoli was on the planning. So the Royal Navy put them in Egypt to do their training with desert warfare and all that landscape stuff. Jack wrote to his mother, if I would have known I would have been sent to this god-forsaken place, I would have never joined the Australians, but worked my way home and joined the South Shields instead. On the 125th, on the 25th of April, on the 25th of April, Anzacs took part in the Gallipoli landing, an attempt to knock out the Ottomans out of the war. The whole British Empire fought, and Jack Kirkpatrick was there as well. And this is where the story gets really good. Jack was well built for his age, and he picks up a stretcher bearer role. The task of a bearer was as deadly as fighting on the front line itself. They would have to enter the battlefield, pick up the wounded, carry them back out without being shot. It was dangerous, but Jack didn't seem fazed by it at all. It was said he would walk across the battlefield and go about his duty without concern for his own life, and even whistle and sing, as he did, leaving the troops in the trenches stunned and spellbound. On his way back down from the hill, as the Anzac Corps was assaulting to get the Turks out of the mountaintop, he saw something. A donkey. Horses and donkeys were used extensively in the Great War to carry supplies, artillery. There were even cavalry in 1914, 1915, rarely in 1916 after the introduction of tanks. But this is about the donkey. And stood next to a man he was going to save, and it gave him an idea. He had a trip down memory lane that day, as he remembered being a donkey lad, and training and teaching donkeys, and giving donkey rides along the beach. He put the injured man on the donkey, and took him to the medical tent to be treated. As Kirkpatrick found his partner, as they went back, and as they went up and down the hill, many times and time again, bringing more and more injured, and rescued twice as many soldiers. Thanks to the donkey, he refused to go back to his unit, as he carried more and more injured, with the help of his donkey down the hill. For disobeying orders, he thought he might be in trouble, but the men in charge heard of this, and they gave him permission to keep going, as he was a special case and continued to save dozens and dozens of soldiers' lives while under heavy fire for 24 days back to back, becoming famous with the troops, and this legend would live on in their hearts. But sadly, on May the 19th, 1950, at age 22, he was shot and killed doing what he loved to the very end, to his last breath, making his acts of courage, bravery, and stamina famous. He was buried on the Gallipoli beach. Since that day, tall tales and folklore were told about the man with his donkey and his bravery, as truth and legend were pretty much mixed together, as all legends were. And in his hometown, he's a hero, as a statue of him and his donkey stand on Main Street and displayed in a local museum. But beyond the South Shields, he is a legend in Australia and New Zealand with the Anzac Corps, and he is known and loved so well by them that he became a national hero. and his self-sacrifice is taught in schools to this day. With his skills he learned from the beach with his donkey, and his character bravery, through all the myths and legends, one thing was for sure: he was a real hero, as he was buried where he learned his donkey skills. The end.